Today I will be covering the IT services sector in the Indian markets. So I've been tracking the IT sector for over 4 years now, and we are at Phillipcapital are negative on the Indian IT services sector. In fact, we downgraded. We were one of the first sell-side brokers to actually downgrade the sector last year in December, and since then our calls have played out to perfection. So we believe that the Indian IT services sector at this point of time is actually going through a very big transformation phase, and which is going to last for at least 2 to 3 next years, during which most of these companies are actually going to see subdued earnings growth. So the reason for that is actually lies in the history. So basically, if you see over the last 10 years, the Indian IT companies had a tremendous run. They had the dollar the INR depreciating against the dollar, which was working to their advantages. There were new economies which were opening up to outsourcing, and there was a huge supply of engineers from the Indian engineering colleges. So the Indian IT companies generated huge amount of cash, but the problem lies with the utilization of cash. Most of these companies did not utilize these cash to invest in growth opportunities. So we analyzed the cash flow utilizations of the top 4 Indian IT services companies over the last decade, and we realized that over 24% of the cash that they basically generated in the last decade is lying idle on their balance sheet. They basically paid out dividends. 34% of them was paid out as dividends, 22% was invested in capex, and only 12% was used for acquiring growth opportunities or acquiring different companies, as we call it, the inorganic route. So the outcome of that is that today the Indian IT services companies are perceived to be the laggards in the new age digital technology, which is taking up the enterprise world by storm. So as the world is shifting from the traditional IT outsourcing deals to digital transformation deals, the Indian IT companies are still considered as body shoppers and companies which probably do not have those capabilities. Having said that, it is not that these companies do not have those capabilities, but the perception about the Indian IT companies has always been that we are able to do the outsourcing and the traditional kind of a business much better than these high-end and strategic kind of businesses that need to be done henceforth. So that is where we believe the Indian IT companies will find it difficult to compete with the likes of IBM, Accentures, and Capgemini's of the world. On the other hand, if you see right now, the Indian IT companies are actually being sandwiched between two very strong layers. On top of them are global companies like Amazon, IBM, and Google. So all these companies, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and Google, have come out there with their own cloud platforms, which is cannibalizing the traditional sources of revenue for these Indian IT companies, especially the IMS segment. So that is where they're losing their traditional business. And on the other hand, you have a plethora of small niche startup companies based out of Silicon Valley, Israel, or even Bangalore, who are actually gaining a lot of traction in these enterprise deals. So mind you, most of these startups are not yet getting a lot of deals, but they are being increasingly inquired about in these enterprise deals which are being awarded. So it's only a matter of time, I would say probably maybe a year at max, that we see many of these companies actually gaining a lot of traction in the enterprise deal. So sandwiched between the global giants like Amazon and Microsoft and the small startup companies, we believe the Indian IT companies are going to find it extremely difficult to even report a double-digit dollar revenue growth over the next 2 to 3 years. At the same time, the margins are going to be under tremendous pressure because they'll have to reskill their entire workforce. They will have to invest more in sales and marketing activities. So single-digit revenue growth with margins under pressure will probably lead to single-digit earnings growth at max. With single-digit earnings growth, we don't expect any re-rating for the sector. In fact, many of the stocks would actually probably end up de-rating over the next couple of years. So we remain negative on the entire IT services sector for the next 2 to 3 years. Having said that, it's not that it's the doomsday for the IT sector companies. At the end of the day, we service more than 60% of the Fortune 500 companies. We have a huge traditional base that we have with these companies. So we're probably going to bounce back again, maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, when the entire world needs third-party outsources again. But during this transition period that we see over the next 2 to 3 years, I think Indian companies will continue to find it extremely difficult to report the kind of growth that they have done over the past decade or so. The only company which we like is probably Infosys, which we believe is doing the right things, acquiring the right companies and getting the right deal flows, and NIT Tech maybe in the mid-cap space. Apart from that, we remain neutral to negative on most of the IT services companies for the next 2 to 3 years. Thank you.